Okay, this is try 3 of Jane and Emma's critical discourse about Nella Nelson and the Dreamcatcher article.
So Nella came into our class and talked about um, her experiences with First Nations students and um, our what it looks like in the classroom, basically. So for me, it was really cool because it was the first time I really felt like someone was talking to us as teachers about a topic that is avoided sometimes. So, what happens to kids who are from Aboriginal, from Aboriginal families, and how they interact with their life outside of school and how it affects their life in school. So I felt like the way she presented to us was very honest and real perception of what they experience and how as teachers we can relate to that and make it easier and how we can incorporate it into our own curriculum.
And she also did it in like using Aboriginal pedagogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like she did it using storytelling, and that was more fascinating, I think, than any person who has ever stood up in front of a classroom for us before, because we were actually interested and engaged the entire time rather than starting to fall asleep. You know, like I felt like she went from one topic to the other topic, but then grabbed us back to this other topic, and it was really, really.
It was also just, I mean, the word I found was authentic. A lot of it was just very genuine and authentic, and so it wasn't. We really got the sense that that's really what happens. That's it's not some sort of story or some sort of cover up for something else that's going to make it easier.
It's kind of like you create meaning and connection through storytelling, which is incredible to just experience ourselves.
Yes, it was amazing. And then just talk about the hidden curriculum and how that applies to Aboriginal students. So how as teachers, like our own perceptions that we bring to the classroom and how deeply that actually affects the curriculum that we teach. So you were saying that the hidden curriculum, you also talked about that in your ESL class.
Yeah, so hidden curriculum would also be in ESL. I did a course in ESL, and how a lot of the things that we teach are just it's European knowledge, or like Christmas, or things that we talk about here in Canada that people from different cultures or ethnicities might not understand, right? Or even the cultural biases that are in the information that we put forth.
Yes, that come within it. A quote from her that was really cool that Jane really liked was, "Being politically correct sometimes just means being conscious of the facts." So while we're not Aboriginals ourselves, we don't have a lot of experience with the culture. That doesn't mean that we should shy away from engaging in it and teaching in it. It just means that we have to be conscious all the time of what we're talking about. So
yeah, and that goes good with the quote. I'm just going to throw out a quote here that I got from the other article, and uh, it goes really with like how this is a quote, so I'm going to use the term Indian, but it's like it says um, the education of Indians by non-Indians using non-Indian methods. Well, we're all like try to be politically correct in that, and but what's worse, not teaching Aboriginal studies at all, or teaching it and perhaps getting some things wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the question. I don't know the answer to that question, but I like the politically correct thing. Like she said, just to be aware of it and be conscious.
Yeah.
And also in the fact that she was saying too about the being conscious of like the language, like the lists or the way they don't say their R's or SH's.
And the cool thing is she had a lot of very specific examples that are very applicable to kids that you would have in the classroom. Like there were some people in our class who had done practicums in schools where they would have noticed that, and so she kind of helped, gave a reason for it. You kind of you understood it. So another specific example is with the winter dances that a lot of Coast Salish communities have, where sometimes they have to take the students out of school for 6 to 8 months to participate in these cultural winter dances. So this is where the struggle comes in that I know a lot of us had was if you as a teacher your job is to teach PLOs and you have a student that's out of the classroom for 6 to 8 months, your job, it's very difficult for you to do what you feel like you need to do for that student, to educate them through the public system and what you're supposed to be teaching them.
Yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on you as an individual teacher because you're trying to help this child succeed in our
In the Western
system,
society.
right, in our school system, and they're being pulled out for 6 months, and
Yeah.
it's a constant struggle, I'm sure, for educators to deal with that.
On both sides too, and I think it's that kind of clash of culture and the public education system. You're always going to have what is being educated in a sense, like what do cultures and different communities put value on in terms of education.
So how do you feel? Like, how would you go about changing that? Like, how do you see a way to change that? That's my question. Like, out of that, is that, like, that's what I think. How could we,
as future
educators, support those winter ceremonies, or
the problem
or support the success of
students who are immersed in a different culture? I think it becomes very difficult, especially with something like this, where the winter dances, using a specific example, are also quite protected in terms of the culture themselves. Like it's not like, as an outsider of the culture, it's not often that you're invited to participate or to see what goes on or to see how it happens. And I think with a lot of cultures, that's where it becomes very difficult, because that's the thing about cultures, is that there's many of them and they're different, and there's a reason why they're different. And there's a reason why people, and it's like celebrating diversity, but at what point does it become too difficult because it's too diverse? Does that make sense? Or not too diverse,
but then how do you decide which
exactly
cultures you're going to bring into the classrooms and which ones you're not? And which ones, you're going to celebrate, and which ones you're not.
And where, exactly.
And if you have Aboriginals in your classroom, if you don't have Aboriginals in your classroom, do you teach Aboriginal education? Yeah. Well, I think yes.
Another important thing to think about too is talk about different cultures, but there's also the culture that we live in. Like,